my god! Ow!
Welcome back everybody to your channel Krasselfrutsch and the Wario Land 3 review. I have my two appendixes back, Bladder and our little dummy. Will this game be as bad as Wario Land 2 or will it regain its old strengths that it had in Wario Land 1? Let's check the game out.
Well, first of all, there's the appearance of the cover to consider. Enough with my waffling my previous review about the cover. Let's establish some criteria for assessing a cover which I neglected to discuss before. What is a cover for? It serves as advertisement, enticing you to buy the thing in the first place. So first, what does it tease about the game? Second, does it have its own identity so it can be easily distinguished from other games? And third, is it visually appealing? So what does the cover of Wario Land 3 tease? The Japanese-American cover differs from the European cover. Let me address the questions for the cover respectively. The Japanese cover shows us Wario in front of the world which the game takes place in. The world is made of wax. Looking at it, you know where you will be, since obviously this is the world you will enter. On the European cover we see Wario in the sky showcasing the different form you will be able to transform him into. What are you interested in the game? The world you will travel through or the transformations you will be able to undergo? While the world is nice to interact with, as a selling point, the world is not what will intrigue you while looking at the cover. I would consider part of what sets Wario asunder and what distinguished him in the predecessor as well are his transformations. You can be struck by lightning now, become a bat and cover Wario in snow. This is something that fascinates me. Let's face it here. Every game has kind of its own world. What truly gives Wario Land its personality is the treasure collecting, the money management, the freedom in the levels, its quirky enemies and Wario's transformations. I'm talking from a perspective of just looking at the cover, but being straight here, I'm not interested in the world of Wario Land. Sure, it is a nice composition in the first Wario Land since you changed the overworld and were always able to discover what kind of levels you would enter by looking at the world. And Wario Land 2 had a shitty world that was slipshod and inept in its deliverance of the grid it worked on. But Wario Land 3's Japanese cover doesn't showcase the world in a captivating way. It is a burden of every game and movie as well, which is part of a series, that it needs to be judged in its correspondence to the other games.
This is where Wario Land 2 imploded on itself.
The world wasn't really the selling point of Wario Land before, but now it is the bait that should hook you up for Wario Land 3. The transformations are what makes Wario unique. Teasing you with new transformations works. It presents something I'm potentially already invested in, as this was a unique part of Wario Land 2 and it teases me for even more new transformations. To be honest, some of these forms are just another way to sting Wario off the stage like the lightning struck Wario, but you don't know that by looking at the cover. As a returning player, I see new forms for Wario to change himself into, and as a completely new player, I see that Wario will be able to change in these cool forms. As a new player, I might be confused but interested how Wario changes forms in the first place. Back in the days, I had Wario Land 4 and saw the European cover of Wario Land 3 in an outdated video game magazine and I was instantly hooked. This cover looks like fun. The world is something I know nothing about and it is nothing that is shown in detail. Wario Land 1 did it better by teasing the world from a closer perspective, showcasing you the drawl and different enemies in relation to Wario. On the Wario Land 3 cover, Wario is also drawn in contrast to the world which is made of wax. Yes, Wario doesn't belong to the world, but this doesn't change the fact that the Japanese cover looks off. Do these covers have their own identity? Yes, both look unique and have their own identity. When I look at the cover, I immediately know which game it is. Perhaps the Japanese cover does an even better job of reminding you of its content, since the transformations showcased are also in Wario Land 4, and some in Wario Land 2 already. Both have their own quirky colors and I would recognize both of them from a mile away. They did both a good job in that department. Is the cover visually appealing? Because of the clashing material, the Japanese cover is actually not visually appealing. As I said, it feels off. The European cover, on the other hand, is a joy to look at. I fell in love with this cover. It is just such a lovely contrast of Wario's different transformations, with Wario holding up 3 fingers and the sky in the background. It coalesces into one arrangement that heats your imagination what these different Warios do. The lightning struck Wario fits into the sky aesthetic and the snowball around Wario looks like a cloud. It has a rich color palette that makes this cover pop. Just a delightful composition. This is my favorite game cover I've seen so far, not just of Wario Land, but of all video games. I've spent hours looking at this cover, thinking about the different transformations, how Wario looked in all of them. It is a sheer relish. In this review I will refer to the European cover when talking about the cover. The opening is a forest Wario is flying over in a chestnut. There is this music that sounds like you can have a leap for the sky. The motor starts stuttering and fuming. Music is supporting the visuals with it stuttering as well and getting a Wario sound, and whoops, there he goes. Some smoke is coming out of the forest with the game title flashing up in the middle of the screen. Simple but clean opening. We know that Wario is stranded somewhere and expect the game to expand on this premise. It has been the same for Wario Land 1 and 2, that there is the Game Boy symbol and then the cutscene starts. There are no other screens you must go through. Quite efficient openings. This game is even more efficient though. Here you can't watch the opening after having a saved game on a cartridge. So when you start the game for the second time, there's no game you can start so quickly. Game Boy cling, continue in a file. I mean, it's great for the impatient player to have almost an instantly starting video game, but I would have liked to actually at least been able to watch this lit cutscene again. It is nothing substantive, but just give me the option to watch it again like I had the option in the predecessors, which had even less to show for in their openings. Wario Land 1 had Wario killing a DD, and Wario Land 2 just zoomed on the island. Just let me watch it if I want to. I'm not that desperate to start the game right away. I had to delete my own save file to watch the flight of Wario again and examine the opening for the review again. Yeah, I'm stupid that I didn't just look it up, but imagine the times without YouTube when this came out. This could have been a reason for others as well, to delete a not fully finished save file to look how the world around the music box looks. I'm curious about stuff like this. Okay, so the title screen presents us again with 2 options, erase file and continue. Well, it is a disappointment that there still is no option for having more save files, and when we see the rest of the game, it is actually a bigger reason for keeping your save files. Since in this game, there's actually content for different playthroughs and different save files, since you can unlock the path of the game in different ways. When you start a new game, you are asked whether you want to play in English or Japanese. So, the changes for the European game are not the languages in game, but just the cover and the menu? I mean, sure, just keep it English, but Japanese? Is this game just produced in Japan and just shipped around the world? Even the save feature is in English and Japanese. I don't know, it appears clumsy to me as a European that half of the screen is in unreadable Japanese for me. It feels unprofessional. It is just weird to be shown the saving screen over and over in Japanese again. This is a game that communicates the most with you, since the hidden figure guides you when you are lost. However, if you don't understand the words you're reading, I couldn't speak or read English as an infant, you won't recognize the directions given and hence receive no clue at all. Heck, you probably don't even know that you will receive a clue in the temple at all. Wario Land 1 and 2 didn't rely on your reading comprehension, and I think this is for the better of the game, especially when it's not translated to a native language. You were told the names of the levels, and in Wario Land 2 the objectives of the levels were just to reach the end of the levels. But here it is not complex or anything, but you have from time to time to visit the hidden figure after some days of a break to get started again. Sure, as an adult I can recognize patterns easier and would have figured it out if it was in Polish or whatever other language. But as a child, which is part of the target group, I might have felt lost. Well, this is a European problem, but a huge problem. Coming back to the opening. When you start the game, Wario walks into a cave. In this cave, there's nothing but a music box. The music box starts blinking on a pedestal. Wario comes close, gets hunted by the music box, turns him into an orb of energy, and sucks him into itself. Wario finds himself in a dark room with a hidden figure, which asks him to collect the 5 music boxes to be able to get released out of the music box. The other treasures can be kept. You can only see some basic outlines of the hidden figure, the rest is kept in the dark. It is an unsettling look. This is what the game itself presents. What does the manual tell us about the story in comparison?
Wario couldn't believe it. It had been such a lovely day with not a cloud in the sky, a perfect day to fly his plane. Then, without warning, his engine began to sputter and Wario crash-landed in the woods. He spent the rest of the afternoon wandering amongst the trees and underbrush, muttering to himself about his miserable luck. Without looking where he was going, Wario stumbled right into a cave. Inside the cave, he found a beautiful music box, but no matter how much Wario wound it up, no song could be heard.
What's this? It must be broke.
But before he could finish, Wario vanished with a flash. Only the music box remained, right where Wario had found it. Wario soon awoke to very different surroundings, and it wasn't long before he realized he was inside the music box. A mysterious figure informed Wario that he had once ruled the world inside the music box until an evil being sealed away his magical powers in 5 music boxes. Naturally, Wario wasn't too interested in this story. That is, until the figure promised to send Wario back to his own world and let him keep any treasure he found if he'd only recover the hidden music boxes, thereby breaking the seal that had locked away the hidden figure's powers. Enticed by the thought of returning to his own world with a cache of treasure, Wario departed on his quest in search of the music boxes and the many treasures of this mysterious land.
Turns out that the menu doesn't expand on anything really here, but is more of a commendation of the game than anything. There is some playful language that paints a clearer picture of Wario, since in the opening it looks like Wario is just not fazed by it in the slightest, and shown to find the cave of the music box immediately. The opening gives you the bare minimum of the story. You're stranded here, what now? I talked relentlessly about the butchered story of Wario Land 2 because of the story additions Wario Land 2 made, and Wario Land 1 story was incomplete in-game. But they learned from their mistake and kept the story to a minimum. Don't get me wrong, I like a good story accompanying games, but when you have no idea or actively work your story against the game, I'd call it ripe to refrain from a story approach. If the predecessors taught us anything, it is to know your limits, and this game accommodated to this lesson. Wario Land 1 had a story you needed to read the manual for. Still not good, but it was simple enough to give it a pass. And Wario Land 2 completely cagged in its own trousers and sat down steaming at your diner. So it is refreshing to see them finally succeed. And yes, I can say that much, the story is fucking boring, but it does the job and it works. Finally, I don't have to see 3 ugly ass gooms anymore fleeing and dawdling slug from Wario while he pursues them agonizingly without being able to catch them, startled at every move the gooms make. It was just a trifle, but this annoyed me so much in the last game that I'm so happy that I don't have to see this bullshit anymore.
But wait, what about Captain Syrup? What? Never? But what am I supposed to do without her?
Damn, Wario really killed her in Wario Land 2. That's rough. The title screen is just the same grid from Wario Land 2, but with a different background. So Wario Land 3 is now starting to present itself optically as a part of a series as well. So far the game did a lot right. If you're able of crude English or Japanese, there's no essential complaint yet. But what about the way you progress in the game now that you have received a quest to fulfill? Imagine you enter the first level and realize that you are as versatile as a parched fish. You can jump, crouch, punch, and that's it. You can't even swim anymore. Basic things I didn't even mention before you could do in Wario Land 2, you cannot do now. Okay, stop imagining now and realize that this is what Wario Land 3 did. There's no lore explaining this, and frankly, even if there was any, it would be difficult to satisfy me. What a letdown to get this in-app Wario to play with. It feels like you play with one hand tied behind your back. The first level is plastered all over the place with things you can't interact with. Might as well put Wario in a wheelchair in the beginning. The level gives you a lot of ideas what could be done, but being as retarded as you are in the first time visiting, you walk through this level in a straight line. The idea is that you will unlock other power-ups like body slamming or picking up enemies, giving you the possibility to interact with showcase blocks and obstacles later. Nice idea, but what this means is that you will not only bypass the first level with a lot of things you can't interact with, but nearly every level in the first visit is just plainly inaccessible to you. The first impression is that you feel held down, especially comparing it to its predecessor. You finish a level by collecting a colored key and approaching the corresponding treasure chest. After finding the treasure, you exit the stage. Every level has 4 treasures to search for, effectively 4 exits. Since you are retarded to this inaptness, the game is really stingy with the treasures you can collect in the beginning. In fact, the first treasures are always showcased in the overworld, level after level, and it is only one treasure. The game feels streamlined and unnecessarily complicated in the overworld design, since you have to traverse the overworld from one level to the next, guided by the blinks, and the levels are sometimes far between. I feel like a pig with a carrot dangled in front of its face. You just go where the game tells you to go, and just find the key and treasure being the only way you can walk through. The game submits you a world to explore, but constantly hurts you in one specific direction. The situation improves in the acquiring of new power-ups and enabling of new events, but it takes a while and this restlessness never completely ends. Each treasure chest contains, well, a treasure. Treasures you collect can be categorized as power-ups, which enhance Wario's moveset, tools that have an effect on the overworld, or ornaments, which have no effect at all. Remember from the previous review that I was dissatisfied with the artificial usage of the treasures? They were just a meaningless image without any individual worth. This game feels like the game developers were dissatisfied with Wario Land 2's approach as well and looked for a way to overcome the problem. And here is what they came up with. Treasures serve now as the main objective. Since every level can only be ended by collecting one of 4 treasures of a level, and the ultimate goal being to collect 5 specific tools, the music boxes. This presents a fundamental flaw of the game. You actually don't hunt for real treasures, but just objectives that are called, thereby disguised as, treasures. The treasures are mandatory now, thus they aren't surrounded by the aroma of being something extra, but just diminished to the next level beaten. You need the power-ups and tools to continue, and ornaments have no use over being an image for 100%ing the game. The only true treasures of the game are the cranes. You don't know what the cranes do, other than painting the scenery. I was still satisfied with this effect and didn't think much of it. It is not much, but it was something that wasn't required but enhanced my game experience. However, there is even an additional reward. If you find every crane, it will unlock you a non-required extra.
This has a sense of adventure and mystery. Nice.
When you lost track of the treasures to unlock, you can ask in the temple for help. The problem is that the temple only provides you where to go for the treasures that precede the story. And as soon as those treasures are collected, it doesn't offer any more hints. The level blocks you out of specific treasures by the power-ups or tools, so you don't have freedom in the original sense, but you have the liberty to click on a level that the game instructed you before to click on. As a new level was unlocked, a new power-up allows access to a new area, or an event was triggered by a tool. Ah yes, tools alone or in conjunction with their respective counterparts unlock some new part of a previous or a completely new level. The result is a constantly evolving map with new stuff displayed on screen. This is really nice for the immersion to see the world around you changing with tools you found. For example, the first treasure you find is an axe, which cuts down a tree, clearing the path, granting you access to the second level, the peaceful town, and the third level, the vast plain. Some tools like that just unlock a new level or interaction on the spot. On the opposite, most tools are more elaborate. Sometimes I don't even know why stuff happens, and a cutscene just shows me that I found some pair that does stuff. Look at the two animal skulls I found. I have no idea what they're for or why they even be considered a treasure, but having both turns them into rings, and by holding these two together, you just summon Tower of Revival.
Alright then.
Not everything can be as on the nose as an axe. An axe that just chops down a tree, and with 100 treasures in game, not all can be winners. But you might as well just find a Rise Tower button in a treasure chest at that point. I wish that there was more of a thought behind it. Sure, it is cool that treasures do something now, sometimes, but some of these tools' effects are far-fetched. It is just plain reaching. So how to fix this problem? In Wario Land 2, there was the problem that treasures were useless and just coupons. The actual treasure of the game was the treasure map. It was still kind of mandatory, but let's say it was a treasure. In Wario Land 1, it was handled perfectly, with the treasures allowing you to access the true ending and them having their own value. The problem with the Wario Land 1 comparison is that treasures are supposed to be the main objective of Wario Land 3. Three possible solutions come to mind. The first, to actually think of good correlations between the treasures and unlocking of new levels, and all treasures contribute the part to new events. You unlock, for example, a shovel and a treasure map and digging out Tower of Revival. This is a tedious task for the game designers and takes a lot of manpower to think of many coherent causations. I don't feel like a shovel would be a treasure, for example, or an axe, but let's not overcomplicate this stuff. Differentiate in-game between ornaments, tools and power-ups. While tools unlock stuff and aren't considered a treasure by being in another chest or some button behind bars or whatever, and power-ups are some kind of closed locked-in lockers, the ornaments unlock some optional benefits. In the end, there would be the number of villagers saved determined by the ornaments you found. You could get a gold coin radar or a gold coin magnet after finding all ornaments, or if you have more than half of the ornaments, you don't have to play the fucking golf anymore and it automatically unlocks. Or you can pay coins to access some power up at some point, or
I don't know, just be creative.
Alternatively, ornaments could be used to buy these power-ups, so you can decide where you want to continue playing. You could also invest the ornaments to buy a new stage from the hidden figure. Admittedly, it would be changing some of these cutscenes, but it would open up the world a lot, since you can decide which power-up you buy, and the world has to be open to an extent that lets you find a reasonable portion of ornaments to begin with. It would also address lightly the problem of the treasures being just a mandatory collectible, but it would lose the ornaments their optional nature again. Let me emphasize that I appreciate the approach the game is taking and the goal it aims to achieve, but I don't like the false openness and the lack of actual treasures. In the previous game, the coins completely outshined the treasures. Well, now it is the opposite. The coins are only used for the golf game now. The coins and golf game have their own section. Just a note, the coins are only for giving you another try on this golf game. The emphasis on coin collecting and getting rich that was present in previous Wario Land games feels like an afterthought in this one. Surprisingly, Wario Land 1 still handled the treasure coin interconnection the best. The treasures and coins work together to the common end of receiving a big domain. Yes, there are fewer treasures, but in Wario Land 3, treasures don't possess the individual value anymore they had in Wario Land 1. Yeah, you can watch all your treasures and how they are connected to other treasures, but that is just window dressing. Some treasures are just part of some scheme that makes sense in hindsight, at best. This game was so obsessed with valuable treasures that the treasures lost their special appeal they had in Wario Land 1. They were optional to collect, were only in some levels, were a shortcut for money and had individual worth. This gave the treasures something special and extra, which is not matched in Wario Land 3.
Dude, Wario Land 1 had such an intuitive way of merging concepts into one monument. It is flabbergasting.
In the beginning, every treasure is having an effect, but as I struggled on actually making progress, ornaments were disappointing and gave me the feeling of wasted time, since there was no tangible progression linked to them. They take on the role of the treasures in Wario Land 2. While it is an improvement compared to the previous game, where having all the treasures was the only requirement, it still falls short. The ornaments are now just dead ends. However, when you find a tool or a power-up, it continues to motivate you. Ornaments didn't really do this to me. They were just an image, again, like in Wario Land 2.
Yeah, it was still fun to hunt for them, but they aren't treasures. The crayons are treasures though, and it's fun to hunt for them.
One thing I want to get off my chest. The fast swimming power-up might be considered both the silliest and the most strenuous power-up to use. This power-up is plain toil. Before delving into the basics of the progression, it is helpful to understand the various enemies opposing you in this Wario Land. In this game, enemies exist solely to waste your time. The progression is interesting. In the first game, enemies could kill you, take away your coins and giving away a treasure after game over. In the second game, they were the only way to lose coins, and they should annoy you as well. Finally, in this Wario Land installment, you don't have any way of losing coins anymore from within the gameplay, but enemies just fuck with you. So let us examine the enemy categories we had before. We had big, small, stinging enemies, transformation enemies, obstacle enemies and special enemies. What changed now is that we have only small stinging enemies, but there are big, small transformation enemies, obstacle enemies and some spicy special enemies. The stinging enemies are still just the easiest enemies to come by, and with that only really used as a trampoline and ammunition once you acquire the respective power-up. The ammunition part should be understated, as the level will be completely transformed as soon as you need to carry an enemy through it. They aren't as annoying as most transformation or obstacle enemies, and since enemies are there to annoy you, naturally there are other enemy types better suited for this solicitation. We've really come a long way. In the first part, these enemies were the core of the game, and now we're at a point where there aren't even big versions of them anymore. We don't even have Gooms or DDs in this game anymore, but this is actually explained by the story. Still sad that there aren't DDs anywhere around anymore, since they were the coolest guys in Wario Land 1. The obstacle enemies were the most prevalent enemy type in Wario Land 2, but we face a similar problem with these stinging enemies. They don't cost you as much time as transformation enemies. Most enemies aren't satisfied with just stinging you, but also need to do other crap. So obstacle enemies aren't as prevalent in this game anymore. The game prefers to introduce more transformation enemies in their place. Writing about the enemy types now really shows me that the front cover of Wario Land 3 sets the tone of the game. This game is truly about the transformations, both in a positive and in a negative way. Although there are still other enemy types, most of the time you deal with transformation enemies, which are placed where the predecessor had obstacle or big enemies before. You can tell now that most of the chapter will be focused on the transformation enemies. So, what transformations do we have now? The transformation enemies can electrify you, make you fat, slice you in half, make you dizzy, flatten you, freeze you, ignite you, turn you into a vampire, turn you into a coil spring, make you invisible, make you swell so you can fly, turn you into a ball of spring, turn him into a ball in general, turn him into a snowball, being in a bubble, and turn him into a zombie. That's 16 transformations. There are some more by an extent, but let's stick with 16 for now. Quite a lot. Some of these transformations are just for your inconvenience and just more annoying to deal with than stings. These ones are electrification, sliced in halves, dizziness and freezing. There are transformations that are sometimes to fuck with you, but sometimes are actually there for progress, such as ignition, flattening, obesity, being a coil spring, flying, zombification, rolling in a ball of any kind or being in a bubble. Lastly, there are the transformations that always expect you to do something with it. These are the invincibility and the vampire. The vampire transformation just changes Wario's whole movement and turns threats to a pushover and little water drops or light into a new obstacle. This transformation is really transforming this game itself, not only Wario. The game designers were so committed to this power-up that you can even access specific help for this power-up. While being in a vampire, press start and there's your help. Nintendo wanted to make this transformation work. the same can't be said about this invincibility. The invincibility is merely a hassle since you can't see yourself only partially, but the enemies can, and it is used to go through one type of obstacle. Passing through pipes berefts Wario of the invincibility. Some random trapped scientist throws this invincibility potion at you. It feels somewhat artificial with the occasional trapped scientist and specific eye thing just hanging out there. The zombies transformation isn't as bad as it used to be. Since you can jump, which changes up the gameplay, there are no more ghosts and zombies are easier to dodge unlike the infuriating ghosts.
But wait, where are my alcoholic penguins? What? My beloved penguins are removed for this fraud of a bird? This imposter? This is outrageous!
Yeah, fuck these birds, the penguins were better. But to give the game credit where credit is due, the transformations are intricately woven into puzzles, requiring you to smuggle some transformation enemies elsewhere or maintain your transformation while navigating through a labyrinth of obstacles. The front cover does accurate advertisement. I quite enjoyed myself utilizing the transformations, save for the transformations that just wasted my time, or the invincibility. The special enemies are in this game specialer than they've ever been. There is this mole cart resembling an ambulance that can destroy blocks and teleports you out of the room if it catches you. There are the Prince Froggies, which just die when the game finally allows it. I hate these. There's the Togebas, which are flying carpets, but in passive mode they have spikes, and the Terror, which imposes itself over you, obstructing your view. Special enemies are more prevalent in this game, showcasing its experimental nature. For a game that takes such a stupendous amount of time to beat, it is a plus for more special enemies, since these enemies offer the most diverse challenge an enemy has to offer, because it's not really categorizable. In Wario Land 3, some more enemies respawn immediately after their spawn zone is out of sight. The birds are still the same, they have a respawn flat rate still, but now the bee substitutes do it as well, along with other enemies. I was particularly infuriated by some enemies, especially the polar bears and, even worse, the Prince Froggies. You feel like you're at the mercy of the game when you just can't escape enemies by killing them. In Above the Clouds were only 2 birds on the first screen, and it was despairing to never be able to get rid of them. The game just doesn't let you adjust the difficulty for you, again, which makes some levels infuriating again. Think about Wario Land 1, where you could adjust the difficulty with checkpoints and killing enemies in advance. Wonderful, but in this and the predecessor Wario Land 2, you just can't adjust the difficulty. Veterans don't mind, but dilettantes like me get the feedback of being bad more than I need to experience it. However, to be fair, when shit gets hard, it has only partially to do with the enemies. Still, the abundance of special enemies and the enormous amount of transformation enemies provide you not only a visual variety, but also a variety in gameplay. Okay, so you are in this new world and have a lot more to discover. In the first game you had an overworld, and in the second you had a template where you had just a level to select from the missing treasures. And in this entry you have the overworld again, but it is completely different from the first Wario Land since it isn't linear anymore. Let me elaborate on that. The first 5 or so levels are linear and discover treasures that open up new levels. But you already realize that each level has more treasures than the ones you discovered and a lot of stuff you can't access. Yet. The first level, Out of the Woods, makes this painfully apparent. With every second frame there is an impassable obstacle. So after the first level you have a decision between the peaceful village and the vast plain. You can decide which to beat first. Finding each great treasure unlocks desert ruins, which you have to beat 2 times, once at night and once during the day. The 2 found tools unlock Volcano Space. After Volcano Space you unlock the ground pound power-up, which doesn't unlock another level but needs you to go back to the levels Out of the Woods and the vast plain to find the red chest of these levels. The game will continue to show you which levels you can access for new treasures, but after a time you will probably lose the overview which levels are unlocked now, since when levels unlock 3 more treasures and you haven't found the other 2 treasures that were unlocked before, you're going to make a decision which treasures to pursue, and I was sometimes trapped in some of these levels for so long, since these levels are still constructed like in Wario Land 2, so a lot of enemies that get on your nerves and try to waste as much time as possible, that you just completely lose the overview like you did now in the long sentence I constructed. The gist stayed the same. But unlike in Wario Land 2, you don't lose coins anymore. So enemies are now purely
for wasting your time
and don't even have a negative connotation above this anymore. I don't even know whether I like this change in general. This kills all danger an enemy is presenting, and it is now an inconvenience in its purest form. But when I think about not being able to beat a golf game and running out of coins, so I'd have to exit a level to collect more to play more golf, just gives me goosebumps. So maybe this is a good change. Thank you, Nintendo, for letting me keep my coins and not needing to collect more coins. It doesn't stop my vexation though. So sometimes you're on these nerve-straining levels, for example the giant hole, and scout for something to do now. But there is nothing, and these enemies just made the scouting mission worse than it needed to be. You unlock more and more of the world and find treasure after treasure, but what this does is that many levels, and especially the different cardinal directions, have problems establishing their own identity. You just wander from place to place you are told to go and don't really feel like experiencing this game. The problem is that you can't actually explore the levels. You are always in a level for one specific treasure, and the rest of the level is still locked behind some unbeknownst mechanic or power-up. If you want to follow the non-streamlined ways, the path that isn't told by the hidden figure, and forgot what was unlocked last, you are in even deeper struggles. The levels stop being real levels, but just another hub for artificial roadblocks.
If you have no pencil and a bladder, you will just end up following where the hidden figure tells you to go.
I must make clear here that there's a point when you unlock a lot of new treasures to gather, where you come the closest to experience the freedom the game wants to enthrall in. However, there comes a point when you need one specific treasure again. For me it was the moment when you need to unlock above the clouds, and I didn't know where the missing eye of the golden snake was. All levels looked like I'm missing something here, since all had blocked paths, some blocking metal blocks or miscellaneous obstacle. I went into the levels and didn't find the single treasure I needed to proceed. There were 13 treasures for me to unlock, and none felt like being unlockable. After checking every level over and over and seeing in every level some obstacle that needed to be removed by the levels, we have a problem here. I felt being adrift, forlorn and abandoned in this game world with no sense of direction. In this game, it came down to Prince Froggy. This motherfucker.
Sorry, not just one. I meant it in plural.
These motherfuckers don't communicate properly how to kill them. After looking it up, every of these frogs except one just die by touching them in a transformation.
Why?
Just an inscrutable enemy. Fuck Prince Froggy. So there's the freedom gone and you start to unlock level after level again in the end. Some levels like Tower of Revival above the clouds and to a degree Castle of Illusions manage to feel connected by having you always clearing an area every time you want to collect another treasure. It is a hassle to solve the same problem 4 times. The hard truth is that a level has a hard time of feeling interconnected if they don't present this shallow skeleton that kickstarts the level. This is highlighted by the procedure of throwing you out of a level. Levels just kick you out of a level after collecting a treasure. It is done because you probably can't access the other treasure without new power-up or tool. But this is a problem that has this consequence of giving the levels this disconnected feeling. It goes hand in hand. Let's look at 3 specific levels so I can illustrate what I mean, but how it sometimes actually works.
It is actually chosen at random. It is just an analysis by sample.
Okay, this is new territory and I hope I can guide you through the level and demonstrate the design of these levels. To tackle this exercise, I'm going to look at the treasures. Out of the Woods is the first level you go in. The great treasure is located at the end of the stage and its corresponding key is accessed by doing a simple jumping up, like in the Mario Party 5 game Leaf Leap, with 2 enemies sprinkled in. Upon entering the level for the first time, you really feel like a blob that can't do anything, which makes the first entrance not just bland, but demoralizing. The red chest is accessible when you finally regain the ability to ground pound. Right at the start of the level there is a frog you can pound to the ground now. Down in the hole there's a pipe to enter. Down there, nothing looks like the level before. The background is different and different enemies. Occasionally, if you've messed up, you have to traverse the vanilla level again, but just to re-enter the pipe again. The only thing that stays the same is the background music, and that's it. You have to get stung by these mosquitoes to fly up to collect the key first and then the red chest. The green treasure is unlocked after regaining the ability to jump on enemies and letting some random giant leaves fall. You obtain the key by jumping on an enemy at the end of the surface. Afterwards you enter a door where now leaves fall. You jump on these leaves to reach the end of a hallway. Getting this treasure might take you less than a minute since you traverse through the levels you've already conquered for the most part. The new room looks completely different as well. It just feels like tacked on and you were just interrupted before. The blue chest is accessible after finding a sand that causes the tree to open its mouth. You walk through the first level with no real threat left for you. It's just stuff that doesn't matter anymore. As soon as you enter the tree, the actual level starts. You ascend a tree while these caterpillars try to wrap you in silk. The blue key hangs in the air outside, requiring you to jump all the way down to snatch the key, wasting your time again. So you don't have an alternative hunt for treasure and chest, but just a time waste at your hands. At the top you face off against the spider, which is one of the best bosses in the game. Since you know how to beat the boss, it is challenging but not unfair. So in this level we have a surface that connects 3 different areas. These areas themselves lack connection in a significant way. You don't get a feeling of an interconnected level, instead it just feels like you're on an elaborate file selection. It is cool to demolish this whole stuff later with all collected power-ups, but I feel like it should have been like this in the first place. This isn't the worst example of this fragmentation, but it does exemplify how the levels present themselves. All these treasures in this level are mandatory for the story. I don't understand why the game gets so much praise for placing the last treasure before the final boss in the first level. I'm annoyed by this whole fragmentation and that I can't finish any level without dozens of detours. However, there are levels that present different ways the level can be interconnected. Sea Turtle Rock is the last level of the north you unlock. It is a giant boulder which has normal looking walls that are actually breakable. This reminds me of the whole Wario Land 2 experience, when I have to punch every wall and ground pound everywhere. It gets worse with these breakable walls over the game again. It never becomes as irritating as it used to be in Wario Land 2 though. I told you in my previous review how much I abhorred this approach, but in this specific level it actually works. The grey key is located below the room of the boss. You just have to hit the walls until you found the actual destroyable block. It is busy work without a fully upgraded Wario. The boss named Scowler is easily defeated. It was probably the easiest boss of the game. After Scowler is killed, a donut appears and transports Wario to the grey chest. Yes, a donut. The entrance to the red treasure is located in the dark water that needs to be illuminated. I found out what unlocked this treasure by researching. It wasn't really communicated by the game. The illuminated water reveals a small section with a new door to enter. In the room you engage in another game of minigolf. After dodging the electricity, you claim the treasure as your own. This treasure evokes the same level vibe as the grey treasure. Good job! The green chest is hidden in a room which becomes accessible after acquiring the second trouser power-up. You enter in a room where you have to roll through an obstacle course to break the blocks hindering your way to the green key and the green chest. Right from the start of the level, you head there and then you are just gone from the rest of the level. The background is still red and the music stays the same, but the same problem arises. You are somewhere else and there are no more breakable normal looking blocks. It just has a different atmosphere. The blue key and the blue chest are among the last pieces in the game. By unlocking goggles that allow you to see in the darkness, thus gaining access to a previously inaccessible door. The door is hidden in the area that was accessed by the stronger ground one. In this new room there are lasers you need to dodge. It gives you the feeling, I don't know, of a volcano, like a mechanical volcano. But it is still in the red, which gives the game with the increasing of the red some identity. But it still feels different at the same time. You enter this room through an area previously unlocked within the level. Again, it has a completely different feel to it. This feels nothing like the other treasures of this level. So, this level did a better job by interconnecting the treasures. It did it by letting you access the treasure by similar means, trying to keep the color palette. It would have worked even better if both the red and the grey treasures were collectible from the start, so it would give you more the feeling of liberty granted. it is quite arbitrary to lock the red treasures behind black water. I already told you about some strange tools, but yeah, here is one of them. The green and blue treasures are divided from the established mold though. They still have this cramped feel the treasures conveyed before, but it's still different. Castle of Illusions is a level unlocked fairly late in the game. You always start in a hallway which needs you to climb up. There are 5 doors on this hallway and 4 of these doors yield 1 treasure chest. The great treasure is located in the door on the ground floor. You can easily ground pound your way to the chest with some normal looking blocks which can be broken. Again, some of these fucking normal looking blocks for no reason. The key, however, is at the highest level of the hallway. So you need to reach the highest point on the hallway, catch the key in midair and re-enter the first door again. It actually gives you an overview of the main surface that you keep on traversing for every treasure. The red and green key are unlocked simultaneously and are found on the 5th door, which doesn't contain a chest in it. The red key is hidden behind the pillar in the first new screen, and the green key is just a little further along, coupled with a challenge to derive the key. Which is, you have to activate a switch and use the coil spring Wario to reach the area with the key fast enough before the transformation runs out. After collecting one of the keys, you can enter the 2nd or 3rd door to collect the corresponding treasure. The green key is mandatory as it unlocks the last level of Out of the Woods, while the red treasure as an optional tool unlocks the shortcut between east and north on the hub and the optional level Forest of Fear. The blue key is unlocked when 2 of these platforms appear again. You break some blocks that can only be destroyed by thrown enemies and hitch a ride on an owl to collect the key. I hate the owl levels in this game in contrast to the predecessor. The pace is fast and it is a feat to maneuver it, since the instant you hang on the owl's stick, he fucking shoots off. The music becomes hectic as well, creating a complete different experience. There was no tutorial and I just never know what I'm doing. After finishing the game, I found out that there's a tutorial site for this owl as well, but I didn't know that. It would have helped me a lot maybe, I don't know, I didn't check it out. What the fuck? Just fuck the owl.
The owl can suck my fucking cock now. I know they wanted to expand on the formula, but the owl fucking sucks now.
So Castle of Illusions demonstrates how you manage to interconnect a level to some degree. It has a hub that needs to be traversed every time, and it is traversed in portions each time. And it tries to provide a bit of a challenge to ensure it is not just brushed off. However, this is kind of unrewarding and annoying. Take for example the worst offender Above the Clouds, which has you clearing some floors every time. Sure, the level feels interconnected and you always feel the same atmosphere when you finally end up in another area, but it's just irritating there now. I fucking loathed my time in Above the Clouds. It is just pure vexation for me. Castle of Illusions is the stage that handles this better, since it is offering more variation, but it still falls short. It falls short because it still becomes monotonous after you need to do a similar thing for the red, green and blue key. My favorite level wasn't Castle of Illusions, despite its interconnection, but the big bridge, because I didn't feel like my time was wasted.
And the level wouldn't let me wait forever until it finally
Deign to grant me the edict of opening the last treasure chest only at the end of the game. How can levels be better interconnected then? It is possible to connect a level by some interactions, or you see some part of a level but from the other side and interact with the stage you can interact with in another way. Or let's consider Sea Turtle Rock as an example. This level gave a showcase of a good way to give you a connected level to play for the grey and red treasure. You engage in similar activities with a consistent background. Well done. If it would have nailed this theming for all treasures, this would have been my favorite level, despite it taking so long to be granted access to the last treasure. There's actually a mode that kind of shows what could have been possible here. When you collected all treasures, every level starts now in time trial mode. Your objective is now to collect all keys as fast as possible and exit the stage by one of the exits. This provides a sense of connectedness, although it can't fully compensate for the lack of interconnection within these levels. It would require significant reworking of these levels to establish a consistent atmosphere and connection throughout. Imagine if the levels allowed you to access more than one treasure right from the start, encouraging actual exploration. Not only would the levels feel more connected, but it wouldn't draw out the game so much. I am up for a long game to play, but Wario Land 3 drags on. The interconnection of levels and power-ups would need some change. I've already made a suggestion about using ornaments as a currency, ornaments unlocking other stuff, or maybe more complex interactions that open up 10 or more interactions, but you need to possess 5 or more tools to trigger this effect. Or maybe even you unlock one cardinal direction after another. I understand that a significant part of the enjoyment comes from the tools effect and seeing what they're doing, but this hinders the interconnection of all levels without thorough reconstruction of all levels. It would also provide players with more freedom within the levels themselves. It might even be a cool idea to not kick the player out of a level when there's still a treasure to find, giving him the sense of digging himself through the whole level. Otherwise, there would be needed some serious reworking of the levels to establish a consistent atmosphere and connection throughout.
Let's roll your boss music.
I don't know what to tell you, the bosses here are still how you fought against them in Wario Land 2. Either I got better, or the bosses are slightly easier to defeat, but I didn't struggle half as much with these like I did with the ones in the previous game. Only some levels have a boss guarding a treasure chest. To be honest, I call them bosses because they fit the category, but they actually don't feel like bosses. They're just an elaborate obstacle, since there's no build-up and out of 4 treasures in the level, they guard one of them. Not even every level has a boss. But it is so encoded for these bosses just to be there. They don't even guard the last treasure, they just guard some treasure. In Wario Land 2, they marked the end of a chapter and it had a sense of ceremony. The chapter title was like Defeat the Bitch, and the levels were shorter. But now it is some bigger scrub, and after defeating the dude, you can't always open the chest right away because you need to have the key which was hidden somewhere else, which completely kills the mood of success and turns into unwillingly searching your pockets for the key of your own house. At least they didn't take me over 50 minutes to beat, and I'm really thankful for this omitted experience. But dude, just let me open the treasure. Talking about the bosses specifically, they still have the same procedure with 3 hits required, and if you get hit you have to restart. Well, not quite actually. The rabbit is back, but he's playing football instead of basketball this time, and there's this thing on the grid which lets you jump back at the grid after being hit. These 2 bosses took me the longest to defeat actually, since the rabbit is not necessarily scoring a goal with you in the ball state, and the rabbit still has to score 3 goals. It is not easy to figure out how you actually score a goal. I prefer the basketball rabbit over this one. The bosses were alright. Sometimes I didn't even know what I was fighting or how the thing was connected to the level or anything. The last normal boss was actually nicely teased, with all these caterpillars stuffed into the tree before the giant spider trying to weave you into its silk. After you defeated the spider, you are ordered to go to the temple. The hidden figure promised you to release you out of the music box after all. You cleared a huge chunk of the game and it is finally time to leave with all your collected treasure. You play all the collected music boxes. The room starts shaking.
Yeah, true. It is a creeping atmosphere. It is dense.
The last boss is Rudy the Clown. This boss really takes up the whole background and really is bigger and scarier than any other boss before. By giving this end boss his own stage, emphasizes this boss' significance. If he captures you, you are sent back to the title screen and you must restart the whole fight. The only time you can get a game over. Clicking A and B together allows you to skip the cutscene back. I really like this presentation. This is how you present a boss, albeit the boss itself is a bit too easy. The previous bosses are shoved aside, but this boss distinguishes itself from all the others, instilling genuine dread and suspense. This boss kicks ass. When you defeat the boss, the atmosphere of the game undergoes a sudden shift. A music track plays that isn't triumphant, but rather carries a melancholic undertone. It takes you aback. The enemies you faced in the game were actually villagers that lived in the music box, and Rudy transformed them into enemies. Apparently Rudy was the biggest transformation enemy we faced so far. The whole conversation with the villagers really just makes you contemplate, and you may actually feel like a hero now. It works surprisingly well, and I'm surprised how skillfully they executed it. It works because Wario still doesn't care. The dude takes the treasure and just leaves. But the player, flagrantly distinguished from Wario now, gets a little thank you he cares for, and then we are greeted with some amazing credit theme that feels like closing the last chapter of the story we were allowed to read out of. Although the story itself is generic and pretty lame, the ending manages to give the game a feel of accomplishment and conclusion. With this sudden shift, the game subverts a bland ending and focuses on the player, since Wario is a dude that is not concerned about anything but himself. It subverts the atmosphere by not just continuing the ambience, but it flips it completely from bumbling and apathetic to giving your actions meaning over just enriching yourself. It works because Wario is just indifferent, letting the player decide to accommodate to the ambience or being a Wario himself. Wario stays in character. Do you as well?
I even have a memo of myself when I defeated Rudy. I was truly relieved.
Take it as a compliment that I don't have anything else to say about it, but am just a little moved and content when I watched this ending after the previous endings that had huge problems. Specifically the 1000 endings in Wario Land 2. I am elated by this ending. Notably, there are no secret exits anymore, which were a core mechanic of Wario Land 2. And I must tell you something disheartening. After this awful incorporation of them in Wario Land 2, I am very grateful that they aren't present here. It would have been good for installing actual treasures that don't feel like they're on the path to the 100 treasures, but the predecessor left me averse to them, that I feel like just stick to the stuff you're able to present and leave out the surplus ideas that might turn the game into drudgery. Speaking of surplus ideas and drudgery. Okay, let's come to the thing we were concerned in the previous games, the money. We have to separate this topic into 3 sections. The money collection itself, the golf game, and the big golden coins. Your coin count isn't displayed on screen anymore, but instead you can see your total coin count by bringing up the pause screen. This means that every coin collected is instantly added to your coin total. You don't need to finish a level to keep the coins, and you don't lose coins anymore by getting stinked. So the game is eager to avoid messing with your coin total. This shows already the lack of care the game has for your coins. Enemies seldom drop coins now, but if they do, they drop coins worth 10 of whatever this currency is. Another way to get 10 coins is by collecting the giant gold coins, which have for some reason the same worth as the small coins. Coins are only used to spend on this golf game that keeps on raising the price the more you progress through the game. If there is no golf left to play, there's no more use for coins. To be fair, there's a golf course to unlock, which turns this once essential collectible to pocket money. So if you enjoy the golf game, you are in luck, since the developers did as well. Speaking of the devil, the golf game is mandatory in some levels and always has the sign over the door. It is an improvement over Wario Land 2 that there is a direct communication of the game room. You have to punch the paragoon into the hole within the par limit. Otherwise the golf game ends and you have to pay the particular entrance fee again. If you are skilled in this game, the coins are worthless to you, since you only pay the fee once. Winning the golf game pushes this arbitrary block out of the way. Again, arbitrary. This means you have to play this golf game, and unlike in Wario Land 2, where you can always choose an easy mode or just skip the game altogether, there's no easy mode available this time. The course selection is at random and sometimes you just get harder courses to finish, which might lose a novice player many coins, until there's finally a course that is easier to beat. But don't choke on this one then!
Wow, Wario Land 2 did 2 things better than Wario Land 3. The YOW and the money interconnection. Shut your papers! Wario Land 3 is still kilometers better than Wario Land 2.
If you're out of coins, you have to leave the room and collect more coins. So there's a possibility you even have to leave the whole level to collect coins and lose an already collected key or unlocked chest. In Wario Land 2, this potential problem existed as well, but there were always so many coins on one stage that you could find at least 150 coins on one stage. It was more of gambling. you could easily adjust to it. This only is a problem in the beginning, because after some time you no longer have to play the golf game for some reason. It only comes back for Above the Clouds, where the game lets you keep guessing which treasure requires the golf game to be beaten. The golf game is right at the start of the level, and the objectives of the treasures are always to jump higher. So if you don't play the golf game in the beginning, you might need to start from scratch. It is actually a funny idea, and because the level is not torture anymore, but straight castigation, you always play the minigolf game, because having to jump these disparaging clouds up more often than you need to be is just an existential threat. Still, the golf game is a possibility to drag out the whole game for no reason. It won't probably happen, but don't menace me in such a sleazy manner. It loomed over me while playing, even in the levels without the golf game. I didn't want to play a horror game, Jesus Christ. While it is a well done idea to unlock additional golf games after collecting all the coins and allowing players to spend their money on them, the incorporation of the golf game into the overall game is horrendous. Make it free, give it a selectable difficulty, or to hell with it altogether. The giant gold coins are collectible in every level. 8 coins are there to find. Some are just on the way, others are so hard to find that it comes to the point of ridiculousness. Collecting one of these coins gives you 10 coins. The game doesn't communicate this, and there's no coin counter on the screen, so it might take the player some time to actually realize, if ever, that these coins give you money as well. I mean, maybe you just found out because I just told you. It is strange anyways that these giant coins are worth as much as these small coins. Anyway, after if you finish the level, it shows how much coins you've collected so far, so you can continue collecting these coins after you come back to the levels.
What? You don't keep the gold coins? Are you serious?
Apparently, you don't keep the coins, so it's just a waste of time showing how many coins you've already collected. So it is another point where the game feels unnecessarily harsh. It is the same song I've sung in my last review and now as well. This game makes things bothersome to make up for your invincibility. Actually, in this game it is different. These giant coins give you 10 money, and the coin drops by enemies are at random, so to make sure you can always collect some money, it appears that the big coins respawn and get reset. You could turn these giant coins into silver coins after being collected, and gold coins giving you 20 coins instead. These giant coins give you 10 coins, and the coin drops by enemies are at random. So to make sure you can always collect some money, it appears that the big coins don't respawn and get reset. You could turn these giant gold coins into silver coins after being collected, and gold coins giving you 20 coins instead then. But no, you must collect them all in one run. You can't really clear enemies anymore, and you have to collect all coins in one run. This is how the game is not willing to let you adjust the difficulty. If you find all gold coins in a level, you unlock a tile of a 25-part map. So, there are 200 coins to collect. Damn. What a hunt the game sets you on. The overworld map doesn't display that you found all gold coins, by the way. So you unlock a tile, but the levels don't turn golden, or a flag sticks out of it, or just anything really appreciating your work. Nothing. Some levels are alright to have you find all coins. It might be time consuming, but fine. Some levels will make you pull your hair out, getting on the hunt for these coins.
It is a fucking liability.
So what is hidden behind the 200 coins that need to be collected? I mean, this is the hardest collectible of the whole series, one of the hardest of Nintendo's games overall. Does it give Wario the ability to die again, so you have a new challenge unlocked? Nah, this might not be worth it. What might be worth it?
It has to be something that gives you a good feeling. Something that isn't essential though. Something that makes it worth to collect 8 coins in 25 levels.
Is there anything that could make it worth? The objective is so arduous to accomplish that I really doubt that there can be anything to make it worth. The only way to make you something worth the hunt has to be a constant reward that feeds you with every 24 coins or something. Okay, I stop wasting everybody's time now. The reward for 200 coins is another golf course.
Oh, I missed!
I already made clear that there's nothing that would be worth the hunt for these coins, but stop it with this stupid golf already. Why is some more gold hidden behind a collectible that is the hardest to collect in the whole series? The pleasing result for me is that I didn't even try to collect all coins, but just tried it for Volcano's base to see whether it changed anything, but nope, it just gives you one tile. What a laughable reward for such an endeavor you put yourself through. It goes a full circle though. Collecting all the coins gives you more golf to play, so you have more options of spending your money. The last feature that needs talking about, if only for how underutilized and overhyped it is the day and night system. Upon starting the game, it begins in the daytime, and each time you exit a level, either by choice or after finding a treasure, the time transitions between day and night. In some levels, the enemies vary between day and night, but it seems like this feature was forgotten after the introduction phase, as there's no longer any difference of enemies between day and night later on. There's the stage Desert Ruins, which requires you to beat it during day for the red treasure and night for the grey treasure. And then
The feature becomes obsolete.
later on you acquire a treasure that has you changing day and night, but I only used it for, if at all, the music. However, the last treasure in Above the Clouds, which is one of the last treasures to collect in the game, needs you to enter the level at night. Okay. The 4th and 5th treasure of the game consider the time of the day. Then for 90 levels it doesn't matter, just for it becoming relevant in the 99th level again. It is just completely undercooked. Moreover, when I unlocked the moon in Above the Clouds, I initially thought I unlocked the sun. So it asked me to be daytime, since in the cutscene it looked like the sun rose, but it actually was the moon. It is due to the stupid black and white design in the cutscenes. I was profoundly convinced that it wouldn't matter anyway, given that it didn't matter for the 93 treasures between the red and grey Desert Ruins treasure and the moon one. Except it matters for 3, not only 2 out of 100 treasures.
Oh, in that case, it is completely fine. Ha! Ha! Ha!
People who praise the game for this mechanic are seriously overhyping it, and I still maintain the opinion that flat falling ideas should be scratched. I do give Above the Clouds credit though. It is an amazing idea to enter a moon. It just has such an haphazard interior that I can't shake off the thought of it being an afterthought. The moon could have been implemented without daytimes. It could have been placed just one stream higher, where it is always dark and the treasure would have triggered the appearance of the moon. However, it feels like it was to the game's benefit the day and night mechanic wasn't heavily utilized, since it seems like another annoying hoop to spring through and unnecessarily stretching out the game.
Guys, we forgot this amazing day-night mechanic and the game has to be released tomorrow. So what are we gonna do? Brilliant idea. We just let you enter in one of the last levels in the moon and you enter in some parallel world so you don't have to worry about the interior and we just do some random shit.
Now, when we talk about the day and night mechanic, we cannot only talk about the moon. We also have to talk about the 2 treasures in Desert Ruins as well. The reason you can only access one treasure at day or night is that one side is blocked by some magenta block adorned with a moon and on the other side with a sun symbol on it. Wow! Wow! That is the reason why you can't access a different treasure, because the magenta blocks rise and fall in accordance with the signs on them. This is just paltry and gratuitous to put this mechanic to use. Lazy, just lazy work.
You are a matricide, do you know that, Blätter? But alright, it isn't as important as it sounds now. But it's still something I needed to talk about. But let's move on.
A question I see myself confronted with is,
why are you always making up some arbitrary effects or attribute worth to treasures? Treasures and levels aren't just constructed to your preference. Stop whining.
This question always lingers in the recesses of my mind, but if you stayed with me this far, you are likely to understand my comments. However, let me address this head on. For a constructive critic, it is vital to always ask the question, why does the game utilize that particular asset? Why is it that I have 25 levels and not 100? Why is it that I collect treasures and not just, say, different shovels with unique looks? What are the potential expectations for a treasure? What value do coins hold to Wario? Why is this still considered a part of a series? Are the things you collect actually what you envision them to be, or are they just tokens that could be anything? My queries reveal my trajectory. It is crucial that we take the images and concepts the game presents seriously. It is not just about the look you are presented with, but the intent and vision which guides you through a game. If the game esteems the ideas it employs in appropriating, subverting, or maybe even expanding it with awareness, the idea being worked on will be the correct idea to work with. Otherwise, it might feel hollow, akin to the coupon-like treasures in Wario Land 2. If you string levels together with 4 treasures to collect, always keep in mind how the level, which yields 4 ways to go, harnesses the liberty it affords. If the level doesn't feel interconnected and you can only access one treasure after another, it might be as well a level selection right from the beginning. The game designer's decision need to be synchronized to bring out the game's potential in a condensed flow. Otherwise, it might feel like one idea after another and not like one game. The day-night system is the worst offender of this. As a follow-up on a game in a series, you always have certain expectations that need to satisfy or present certain alternatives to expand on established formulas. A sequel doesn't exist in a vacuum. Knowledge and even leisure are built on the shoulders of giants, and when you meticulously analyze presented concepts, you can get a grasp of the whole vision of the game in a coalescence with the rest. Whether the game designers did what they did consciously or unconsciously doesn't matter. From the gaming experience, you might not care about the actual intent, but the vision and intent are an emulsifier which fuses separate concepts and images into one game. The concepts exude a sense of freshness and esteem for their own biography. This is how you can seamlessly integrate the concepts into the game world without any explanation, by intuition. And this intuition is the shoulders of the giants we are standing on. If you treat a feature as a blank slate without at least acknowledging the original idea by either contradiction, preservation, or development, you inadvertently end up at media that is just shallow in the purest way possible, and by keeping your critique in this complete vacuum turns media in being literally randomly criticized. Okay, I hope I addressed this potential worry successfully and understandably. I aim to keep it terse, as I don't plan to contaminate this review by sprinkling in a game design video, although it might warrant a topic to ladle a whole video out of. Now let's move on to the conclusion. I have discussed the concepts in the working and how they need to be implemented effectively, but there's one thing that I can't leave out while talking about the game, which culminates in this conclusion. Its vision. Wario Land 3 possesses a clear vision, clearer than its predecessors. You should find treasures that make you more capable of conquering the environment and just letting you storm the world it presents you to plunder of its treasures. The game was sharper in the way it persuaded its goal than Wario Land 2. While this game has its own weaknesses, it feels like a ameliorated Wario Land 2 within the grand scheme of things. Mistakes were accommodated, and in playing it you feel the ideas of the game designers dripping in your eyes and onto your hands. There are crude and inchoate parts, and I covered them, but the overall game lures you into its gist. Although there are phases the game pushes you away, most of the time you will truly experience its vision. Wario Land 2 felt like a pilot in comparison. If you enjoyed Wario Land 2, you will enjoy Wario Land 3, but the reverse might not hold true. At points I had a rush that compelled me to seek out the next treasure. When you are in the midst of a successful run, a surge of joy overwhelms you. Some struggles inside the levels couldn't dampen my enjoyment at these points. The best part of the game is when you have only one power-up left to find, as you unlock so many new treasures, finally end some levels for good now, and aren't held back anymore. It would have been possible to structure most of the game this way, but it would have demanded different focuses and a looser dependence on tools, with fewer if any at all unlockable power-ups. The bosses were finally real bosses in Wario Land 2, but they aren't here anymore. But they didn't take such a staggering amount of time for me to beat, so I didn't go almost insane in the end. So yeah, I don't know, but the bosses were disappointing. The coins are in a vacuum with the golf game now, and the mini-golf is far too obtrusive, which could have been some extra if at all. The treasures could recapture the mystery and freedom they had in Wario Land 1. The game attempts to change up the game with more than just stingy enemies. However, it doesn't help when you stay in levels too long or have to beat every level 4 times. One significant problem in this game, which relies on reading to some extent, is the lack of translation for the European version. What happened there? It wasn't a problem for the previous games, but reading here becomes necessary when you're stuck or to know at all that the temple tells you your next location. This oversight is quite significant. My initial conclusion was much harsher upon completing the game, considering that the last level you unlock above the clouds is one of, if not the worst level. You might understand that assessment. The review of Lonely Goomba made me really soften on some views I formed about this game, however. My own review wouldn't have been a teardown, but I didn't consider this game as some sort of a sandbox experience. Other positive reviews didn't manage to convey this experience as good as he did. Some reviews I watched didn't even finish the whole game and were at the other side and just shitting over this game. Criticizing this game without fully finishing it is ludicrous. The whole review is OTO's work then. The whole game is designed to have you develop and accumulate more and more powers and tools. You're clearly mistaken when you don't finish this game. It is not written on the cartridge, right, but try to comprehend what you are actually playing. What is the worth of a review or retrospective if you fail to understand the essence of the very medium you are analyzing? Name it first thoughts then and move on. I take this time to emphasize that it is disrespectful to the game, and a review that states "It is not for me" holds no value at all. Anyway, I'm tiring with my final ranking, but it must be on par with Wario Land 1, so it remains far superior to Wario Land 2. And if it weren't for Lonely Goomba's enthusiasm that assuaged some of my doubts, it would have claimed the second spot. And if it weren't for these occasional botcheries, sudden air holes where the game is put on a halt, and a more amendable beginning, Wario Land 3 would have actually surpassed Wario Land 1.
Wow, this was the review of Wario Land 3. I had a lot of stuff to talk about. It seems like it's piling up with the information I have to process and work into the review. I hope I made myself clear and you understood what I liked and what I didn't like and why. And I can already see that my next review will be even longer, but I hope you will watch me on this journey then as well. So see you in the next review. This was your Castle Fudge. See ya.